Hi, I'm Joe with Gramophone, and today we're at Gramophone's beautiful experience center with none other than Evan from McIntosh. How are you, Evan?
Hey Joe, doing well. How are
Good.
you?
We're going to talk in detail about that amplifier, but first I just want to share with you a story about the day that I realized how important big electronics, really good electronics, are to any speaker experience. I had been in the industry probably for 10 years. I was working for a vendor that had a wonderful $199 pair of speakers that I'd heard over and over again with a little 30 or 40 watt amplifier that you would normally pair it with. But we had a listening room with a huge stack of electronics and speaker cables this big. And one day I walked in there and I saw those $199 pair of speakers with this huge stack of electronics, and I thought, boy, is that stupid. And then they played music, and I was floored at how good those little puppies sounded. And that's when I realized it's not just important to have great electronics paired with a great speaker. They can make a difference in any situation. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think one of the coolest things in the role where we're traveling and, just training and all that is, hooking up something like a McIntosh MC462 to a $99 pair of outdoor speakers. You'd be amazed at how different they can sound and how fuller and just like how much better dynamic range you can get from a, modest pair of speakers. So it's definitely why we go up from there, right? And why we make even higher powered amplifiers, because as you get more and more serious into speakers and go up the line with a brand like Sonus Faber, like the AIDA, they demand it. They demand a powerful amplifier, right?
Great. Well, today we're going to talk about the McIntosh 1.25KW amplifier, the finest amp that McIntosh has ever made on a single chassis. So let's get into it.
Sounds good.
So Evan, let's talk just a little bit about why a manufacturer like McIntosh, who makes wonderful stereo amplifiers and then larger ones and better ones, eventually stops making just bigger stereo amplifiers and starts going down the path of making a pair of monoblocks. In other words, what are the inherent advantages of a couple of monoblock amplifiers versus a stereo amplifier?
So Joe, great question. There's going to be a few main benefits to going with like a monoblock amplifier. One is folks like putting their amplifiers out closer towards the speaker. So then what you're doing is running a longer balanced interconnect versus a longer speaker cable. So you're less likely to have any kind of noise pickup along the way when you do it like that.
So with the monoblocks closer to your speakers,
yeah,
shorter bit of speaker wire, longer bit of balanced cable where you're not going to introduce noise. That makes sense.
Exactly, yeah. So that's one major advantage. The other advantage is when you have a stereo power amp, there is a potential for crosstalk, right? So every amplifier manufacturer does a number of things to prevent this from happening, but there can still be, let's say, maybe a little bit of like the left channel that's getting picked up in the right channel and vice versa. You completely take that out of the equation when you get a monoblock, because you're just sending a separate left and right, out to those specific amplifiers, and there's no crosstalk. There's no chance of that happening at all.
So Evan, let's talk a little bit about quad balanced power.
So what's really cool is like if you look at a schematic of a McIntosh amp that is a quad balanced amp, in the case of the MC1.25KW, that's actually, two 600 watt amps. And one is doing 600 watts of in phase and one is doing 600 watts of amplification out of phase. And we sum the totals, but we flip that out of phase back into phase, and it effectively cancels out all the noise that the transistors created. Therefore, we're able to create one of the most powerful monoblock amplifiers in the world with a signal to noise ratio of like 120 dB on unbalanced or 124 dB on the balanced input.
And at 124 dB, it's almost unheard of to have an amplifier that has this much power and yet is so quiet. In other words, the dynamic range that you can hear, that amplifier is not introducing any problems in the system. It's really doing exactly what we want.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people think, well, that's a big amplifier at 1200 watts per channel. Why would I need that much power? You don't need that much power, but it's incredibly powerful and has the low noise floor. That means the dynamic range is stunning.
Yeah, so quad balance models from McIntosh are pretty easy to spot. They typically have like 6 terminals because we do 2, 4, and 8 ohm taps, and one of the quad balanced feature sets is that you have like a negative for each of the 2, 4, and 8 ohms, or 4, 8, and 16 ohms, depending on the amplifier we're talking about.
So Evan, these 2 amplifiers, these 2 monoblocks, these are the finest single chassis amplifiers that McIntosh has ever made in its entire history. That's over 70 years at this point. In fact, these amplifiers weigh 158 pounds each, which is more than I weigh.
Right. I wish I could say the same.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the internals and start digging into the technical aspects of why this thing is such a powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. So the MC1.25KW amp is, like you said, our most powerful single chassis monoblock amplifier that plugs into an outlet, right? Because we have the 2KW, that's technically 2 1,000 watt amps stacked on top of each other with an additional box that does the quad balancing, right? So, yeah, as I hit on earlier in the video, if you have like a 15 amp, 120 volt circuit, this is about the maximum amount of power that we can pull out of a single outlet in a home. The MC1.25KW also has an output autoformer, and output autoformers or output transformers were really popular back in like the 50s because the transistor had not been invented, and tube amps were it, and like a tube output tube wants to see a 4,000 ohm load. Obviously there are no 4,000 ohm speakers, so they had to have a transformer to kind of like wind that down and get it more in line with like an 8 ohm speaker, right? Which is pretty popular today. You see a lot of speaker manufacturers like saying, we have an 8 ohm speaker here, but if that has like 2 woofers, it's probably more like a 3.6 or 3.5 like minimum impedance in the bass. So what's important there is like, we're tapping these out at 2 ohms, 4 ohms, and 8 ohms, and you're getting 1,200 watts no matter what tap you're hooked up to, right? So you kind of just want to like pair this up, like look in the owner's manual and see like what the minimum rating and nominal rating is, and work with the folks at Gramophone to decide like, hey, what tap do I want to be connected to? But again, 1,200 watts into a 2 ohm load, continuous power, and 1,800 watt peaks. That's incredible power.
It's massive power and stability, which pretty much means you can use these monoblock amplifiers with any speaker on the market and not have any concerns that you'll drive it powerfully, safely, and it'll sound great. So Evan, one of the things I'm loving about this amplifier is the way that McIntosh pulled off a really challenging trick. They were able to maintain the traditional McIntosh benefits, you could say, but they didn't just stop there. This is an updated industrial design. It doesn't look like exactly like a McIntosh amp of 20 or 30 years ago.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a great point. And we were kind of thinking through, hey, on a monoblock amp, people are obviously going to probably have this on an amp stand, out and about. These aren't really like visible to be set down on a credenza, So. We wanted to kind of make it pop, so we used some aluminum accents here, and we updated the meter to be like an 11-inch meter. we really like meters at Mac.
People love them.
Yeah, our slogan is kind of like trying to listen to hi-fi without a meter is like driving a car with a broken speedometer. You're bound to get in trouble. So the meter, the whole thought is like it keeps you within the limits of your system, right? If your speaker can handle like 600 watts, it's still beneficial to have an MC1.25KW hooked up to that. You just need to know that you can't run it at full blast, right? It's not all about playing loud with these things, right? So
that's right. So it's got the beautiful design. I actually didn't even think about this. Is probably the largest meter that Mac has ever used in an amplifier, and the wonderful green backlighting. Can you tell us just a little bit about this silk screening process?
Oh yeah, it's a really cool sight to see. Like these products are truly handmade in America. We stamp our own sheet metal on these. we bend our own sheet metal, we paint our own sheet metal, we cut our own glass. The glass and the sheet metal are from the US. The glass, we print on the back of it. And the reason why we do that is because then over time, like the lettering and stuff doesn't wear out. You're not like using a labeler to tape on things like input and volume later, right? Our products last an incredibly long time, both functionality wise, but also cosmetically wise, which leads to their really high resale value. So we print on the back of the glass faceplates here in-house. And we do that so that we can backlight it. That makes it also like easier to use at night, and and enjoy it both cosmetically and sonically for a long time.
It's a wonderful part of the pride of ownership of a McIntosh that in so many cases, decades later, it looks as beautiful as it did before, and it sounds as beautiful as it did before.
Yeah, you're right. It's not like every iteration we change up our industrial design. So it's really cool. Not everyone's going to be buying like a whole Mac rig at the same time. So that's another reason why we use the industrial design that we're known for, is because you can piece this system together throughout your life, and really build something spectacular.
A nice benefit. Evan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We've talked about the McIntosh 1.25KW amplifier and what a spectacular amplifier it is. We're going to link down below to the videos for this Sonus Faber AIDA 2 speaker. But the joy of it is to hear the combination together. And where can you do that? Come to Gramophone's Experience Center. Book yourself an appointment. Bring some of your favorite music to Timonium, Maryland. We'd love to play this system for you because it's a mind-blowingly good system. Check out all the products that we have at gramophone.com and follow us on our social channels. We'll put those links below as well. And if you don't mind, please like and subscribe to this video. That's going to help us out a lot. We've got locations in Timonium, Columbia, and Gaithersburg, Maryland. And check out our Kitchen Design Center as well. Thanks for coming along. We look forward to seeing you in our next video.